Hi, my name is Daniel. I'd like to welcome you at Jardin Nelson here in Old Montreal. The recipe we're going to do today is called Pouding Chomeur. It's a recipe that was created during the Great Depression as a simple dessert that could be done for cheap. The original recipe involves using brown sugar and water. We kind of modified it to make that dessert an upscale version of that dessert. So for the syrup base, instead of brown sugar and water, we're going to be using 35% cream and pure maple syrup. So the first part of the recipe involves making that sauce. To make that sauce, it's as simple as pouring the ingredients in a food processor, or you can use a handheld blender, or you could even use a little mixer. What's important is to attain a high enough speed to get the ingredient homogeneous to one another, everything the mix well made. So we can let that thing spin for about 30 seconds. It doesn't take that long, and that's the basis syrup for to make our sauce. And that's it. The next step of the recipe will be preparing the dough to make the cake itself that will be cooking in the oven with that syrup. For the next part of our recipe, we're preparing the dough itself, which once it's ready should resemble about the texture of a cookie dough. So the first thing we put butter inside a mixer. The butter has been softened to room temperature, but not too hot, otherwise it will melt, and you won't get the same result if you're using melted butter than softened butter. And we put the sugar. Right, so we mix the sugar. We mix the sugar and the butter at low speed in order to get it together in a paste-like texture. It's going to take a little while in the mixer to do. Then once this operation is due, we can proceed to add the other ingredient of the dough, which are simply the eggs and the flour that you see here on the table. Now we get to the operation where we're going to incorporate the flour and the eggs inside that sugar and butter mixture. So we start by the flour. The main thing to remember is not to bring in it to put the mixer too fast unless you want to look like a snowman, especially when you're dressed in black. So we're going to start by incorporating that flour. Once it's sticking to the mixture of butter and sugar, then at this point we can add in the eggs. After adding the flour and to the mixture, I'm going to also add the baking powder. So this type of mixture, they're protected with a grill. So every time I put something, it stops the mixer. What can you do? It's for the safety of our fingers. So as the mixture is getting ready, I can increase the speed without getting dusted. I will now put the eggs. So once you put the egg in the mixer, you can raise the speed of the mixer to a higher speed to really incorporate the egg to the flour and the butter and the sugar and so on. At this point now it's ready. I'm going to pull it out of the machine, and we can start working with the dough. This is the result we're looking for. It's a dough. It's very similar to a cookie dough. It's not something that's pourable. And that's really the secret of this dish. In the original recipes that was created in the 20s, and the recipe itself, the cake is way more liquid. It's more like a cake, and it's poured on the syrup and then cooked in the oven. In our case, we put the cake in the bottom, and then we'll pour the syrup on it. As it cooks, the syrup will pass through the cake, making the dough, creating the humidity in the dough that's needed to have a cake texture. The next operation, of course, will be to get this out of there. What I suggest, we work us with portions. We make them in those dish, which are cast iron. And in order to do the portion, we use an ice cream scoop like that. And we just scoop the portion to make them all the same size. This, if you're receiving some guests at home, it would be a nice way for you to get a little ahead of time in your mise en place. You could do all those the day before even. Keep them in the fridge. They can even be frozen. If you do a big batch and you want to have some always ready in the freezer when I have guests tonight, you just have to defrost them and then you can make some. It's easy because the syrup mixture is easy in itself to make as well. So first we spoon them and then we'll put them in the dish. All right, now we get to the part where we're gonna actually put the dessert itself in the dish and send it into the oven to cook. As I said, we're using cast iron dishes. If you were to use dishes that have like a Teflon coating or something like that, you wouldn't need to grease them. But we use cooking spray to grease the pan. So what we do basically, we just take the little balls and they're hard, like you can throw them at somebody actually when they're not doing their job the way they're supposed to. And that's it. All right, so once you set your dough at the bottom of your dishes, the next step is to add the syrup we made in the first step. The syrup, the sauce that's made of cream 35% and maple syrup. So this, now we just pour it like generously like this on the pudding. And we should keep some in reserve for later because once it's done, we do a little caramelization at the end for the service, especially if you do them ahead of time. If you plan to do them like straight out of the oven, then you could like put all the sauce in it. And that's it. Now these desserts are going now in the oven. They're going to be cooking for 20 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And this may vary depending on your oven. We have like special ovens here at Jardin Nelson, so the result might be different at home. So this is our pudding chômeur now coming out of the oven. They've been for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. There's two ways you can do this. First of all, this dessert has to be served hot. It's not a dessert that you serve cold. So the first option, let's say you have your guests ready and all sitting and they're waiting for you to bring the dessert for 20 minutes. You could have I could have left them like another 5 minutes in the oven, or I can pull them out now. And while we're eating supper, I'm at this level right now and they're still pretty hot. I can keep them out or in the oven at a low temperature, or I could keep them on the counter depending on how much length of time I have to keep them. And what we're going to do, that's what we do here because we never know when the customer is ready to have his dessert. We keep them hot. And we're going to do a finishing cooking time on it. It's going to be 500 degrees for 2 minutes. And what we do, remember we kept some of the syrup. We just add a little bit on it, just on top like that, just to make sure they're nice and creamy. So when they go in the oven, they're going to caramelize with this because there's cream and sugar on it, and at 500 degrees, the sugar is going to caramelize. The last step of the cooking process of the pudding chômeur is the caramelization of the pudding. This is done at 500 degrees for 2 minutes. The result is the evaporation of the water that's inside the cream and the sugar of the maple syrup. Then you can attain the caramelization like this. That's when you know your dessert is ready to be served. It can be served two ways. One of the way we serve it here at Jardin Nelson, we serve it with a verrine, which is a small ice cream made with like an ice cream parfait with maple syrup, and we do a little caramel on top. This is the way we serve it, or it could be served like simply like this as the pudding chômeur in one portion. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And now all you have to do is enjoy it. Bon appétit.